In a world where superpowers spend billions perfecting invisible jets, one small Nordic aircraft came dangerously close to beating them using something far simpler. Brains. They said Sweden's Gripen E would never stand a chance against the F-35. Too lightweight, too affordable, too ordinary. But then came the evaluation that almost rewrote that belief, until a single hidden report quietly pushed it aside. It didn't fail publicly, it won privately. And that's what made decision-makers nervous, because once the pilots started talking, the conversation changed. At a time when NATO nations were scrambling to modernize their air fleets, Russia was testing Western response times, and global tensions began shifting toward electronic warfare, most countries went looking for technologies so advanced it bordered on science fiction. The United States had the F-35 stealth, networked, packed with sensors, capable of conducting missions without being seen. Sweden responded differently. Instead of adding layers of technology, it focused on flexibility. While others built war machines expecting everything to work, Sweden designed Gripen E for the day everything breaks. It didn't try to be untouchable. It tried to be unstoppable. Experts laughed in the beginning. A multi-role fighter built on a budget? Good luck. It's clever but not competitive. Gripen is for countries who wish they could afford the F-35. Those comments existed. Some still echo today. But when the real testing began, the jokes stopped. In simulated combat, Gripen E did something unexpected. Instead of trying to overpower or outrun the F-35, it outthought it. By minimizing its electronic footprint, by blending into background clutter, it exploited a vulnerability even stealth jets struggle with today: emission discipline. One evaluator summed it up bluntly. The F-35 hides behind its stealth. The Gripen just doesn't show up, not because of magic coatings or exotic materials, but because Saab figured out how to manipulate signals more intelligently. One test reportedly showed Gripen gaining targeting access before it was detected, not once, across multiple runs. That didn't sit well with some people. But the real turning point came during a side-by-side logistics simulation, an area hardly anyone expected to matter. When placed under degraded infrastructure conditions, runways destroyed, satellite links compromised, rapid redeployment required, the Gripen was ready to launch again in less than 10 minutes, using basic tools, a small team, and a highway. The F-35 couldn't. Not without support systems, specialized maintenance facilities, secure data connections, and temperature-controlled hangars. One pilot involved in the evaluation reportedly said, "If the world ends at 0800 hours, Gripen can still take off at 0810. The F-35 waits for technicians." It sounded like a joke. Then someone realized it wasn't. Cold weather trials were another moment of silence. The Gripen was designed in a country where, temperatures can really plunge, and infrastructure might just go offline overnight. In these trials, the aircraft was started under near-freezing conditions, without a heated shelter. It didn't hesitate. The F-35, on the other hand, needed preparation, environmental control, and ground support. Gripen required fuel, and well, someone willing to turn the key. As one Canadian technician apparently described after winter testing, "We treated it like equipment. It acted like a war machine." Let's be clear here. The F-35 is just unmatched when connected. It's honestly unstoppable when backed by satellites, powerful intelligence networks, and joint strike assets. But the Gripen? It's unmatched when disconnected. And one internal analysis concluded something a lot of folks didn't really want in writing. In the first strike phase, the F-35 may dominate. In the survival phase, the Gripen may endure. That sentence never made it into the final public report. During the evaluation campaign in Canada, something remarkable occurred. Pilots began switching their preferences. Not officially, not in paperwork, but privately. in conversations, in debrief rooms. One described it this way: the F-35 is the jet you pick if you're planning the war from a conference room. The Gripen is the jet you pick if you're planning to fight it. That became the line that started circulating internally, quietly at first, then louder. The Gripen's greatest strength wasn't just its simplicity, it was how intelligently it used that simplicity. Take its software approach. Instead of locking upgrades behind classified US databases, Gripen was built with software that could be updated rapidly in-country without external dependencies. While others demanded million-dollar upgrades, Sweden essentially said, copy, paste, adapt, deploy. In a digital war, that's priceless. And then came another shock. Gripen didn't require complex ground pilots for tactical input. Its integrated digital co-pilot would sort data, translate it into usable combat intelligence, and delegate tasking. One pilot said, "My job wasn't to fight the jet, my job was to fight the mission." So if Gripen almost beat the F-35, why didn't it win? The answer came in the form of a report. Not a performance document, but a strategic one. It highlighted the political weight of choosing an aircraft outside of the US-driven network. It spoke of alliance integration, commonality, and, long-term compatibility with NATO. It said that selecting Gripen might be, honestly, the smarter tactical choice but weaker strategic one. In plain terms, do we choose the jet built for independence, or the one built for integration? Canada chose integration. That report never went public, but it made its way through the right channels. Decision made. Gripen lost. When Saab representatives met with Canadian officials afterward, one engineer reportedly said, "You chose the aircraft that needs the world to work in order to fight. Ours was built to fight when the world no longer works." No one responded, because at that moment, no one needed to. And here's where the story gets interesting. Losing the deal didn't hurt Gripen. It helped it, because now, the pilots who flew it began subtly advocating for its design philosophy. Military thinkers started asking uncomfortable questions. If air bases can be destroyed by hypersonic missiles, if cyber warfare can shut down networks, if GPS jamming can block joint strike capabilities, what happens then? Which aircraft still flies? Which one still launches? Which one still matters? So, after the evaluation period ended, interest in Gripen actually grew, not declined. Brazil, for instance, doubled down on its acquisition. Meanwhile, smaller nations started to really reconsider their air combat strategies. Air Force planners, began discussing mixed fleets, integrating both high-tech stealth fighters and rugged survivability jets. And even NATO, quietly, began studying alternative resilience models. The irony? Well, the aircraft designed by a small country for survival is now being studied by superpowers who are preparing for the first wave of system collapse. Gripen didn't win that contract, but it won something else. It earned a place in the future planning of air warfare. Not as the most advanced, not as the most feared, but as the most prepared. It reminded the world of something simple. Technology wins wars, but resilience survives them. In a sky dominated by giants, one small aircraft taught them a lesson. It didn't try to be unbeatable, it simply refused to be grounded. Gripen E almost beat the F-35, not because it was stronger, but because it was smarter. And the only reason it lost was because someone, somewhere, feared that winning. When the next war challenges not just power, but survival, some nations may look back at that report, the one that stopped the Gripen, and realize it didn't stop a fighter jet. It stopped a warning. Sweden didn't build the biggest jet, they built the one that keeps flying when everything else stops working.